Is that better? Okay, are we ready to begin? All right, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this hearing to order. It is 11 minutes after 10 o'clock. Today is Monday, February 24th. This is the City of West Palm Beach. This is a specially set special magistrate hearing. My name is Keith Davis. I am the special magistrate that's been appointed by the city to preside over today's agenda. We have one matter on the agenda. It's CE 2001-0244. Let me start by placing anyone who's going to be testifying under oath. If you will be testifying, please stand, raise your right hand, and I'll swear everybody in at the same time. Thank you. Do each of you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that your testimony today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You can have a seat. If you have any cell phones that are, if you could silence those so that they don't interrupt our proceedings, that will be appreciated. Typically, on these code compliance cases, I hear from the city. The city presents its case. And if a respondent's present, then I hear from the respondent. I look at all the evidence and enter an order. Let me hear from the city attorney, kind of give me some information. And this is apparently this is a specially set case, so there must be a reason. So if you can kind of bring me up to speed on what we're doing and where we are, and then we'll figure out how to proceed from there.
Good morning, Special Magistrate Arlene Frankenarrow for the city. We have and are prepared to go forward, and Alex is here as the code enforcement officer assigned to this particular case to present you with some facts. As well, we have other city personnel who can give testimony as to some specific code sections and items that we would be detailing. However, we do understand that it is respondent's intention to request a continuance, and so before giving you any of the specifics, I'll turn it over to him. If that is indeed true, sir, we do have members of the public who would like to address you and this venue before you make any pronouncement.
Okay, so let me hear from counsel for the respondent, see what's on their mind, and then we will determine how to proceed. Good morning.
Good morning, Magistrate. My name is Michael Stevens. I'm with Dare Stevens, Black & Cozad, and this morning I'm here on behalf of Joseph and Lana Katseros. Counsel is correct. We are asking for a continuance this morning. My clients are currently out of the country. They have been out of the country since June of last year. They have a special needs child who is currently attending a special school in the Netherlands right now. And so it was not possible for him to be here today. We made this request formally back on February 3rd, 2020, when this hearing was first set for February 19th, 2020. We had asked that the hearing be rescheduled to March 18th, 2020. That date was requested, Magistrate, based on the list of available hearing dates on the website. Today's date especially said so it obviously wasn't available as an option. And also, I think March 4th was another date that I'd spoken with counsel for the city about as a potential alternative for today. But I have my client's plane tickets from when he went to go over to the Netherlands back in June before school started. This is about his property. He's the one that's going to have the most intimate information about it that will be able to testify in response to some of these allegations and to deal with some of these code violations, and also to talk about what he has specifically done to clear up these items. And so I'm a bit at a disadvantage today, Magistrate, since my client could not be here. But we had asked for the 18th of March because, again, that was the next date available according to the website. I'm now told that March 4th is also a potential date, and so to the extent that you are inclined to provide a continuance, my client can be here for the March 4th, 2020 hearing as well. And I can respond to any questions you have about my client's absence today.
Okay. Let me come back and ask the question of the city in terms of what is the alleged violation?
Special Magistrate, if I can allow Mr. Lopez to address, as he would be a little bit more articulate.
Yeah, if you can give me the I guess what I need to know right now. What is the code section that's alleged to be violated? Is it still in violation, or has it been cured? Kind of because those are going to be important issues to me in determining whether or not to continue today's hearing.
Can you give a brief truncated version of?
Good morning, Your Honor. Alex Lopez, West Palm Beach Code Enforcement. The particular code sections that were cited are Section FBC 105.1, which is the installation of artificial turf. That requires permits. FBC 110, the required building permit inspections. 18106K and 74-4C4, which pertain to the landscape maintenance. 18162A, which is the rental of the premises to include Airbnb.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm trying to keep up. I got 18106K. What was the other one after that?
74-4C4.
Okay. And then after that?
18162A is for a rental license.
Okay.
2232A, which is a certificate of use for
Okay.
the license. 82144 is for the business license of the events taking place.
That was 82144.
Yes.
Okay.
94272B,
Okay.
that is for the non-permitted operation of wedding events per the planning and zoning permitted use table. And 94-6.
Okay.
And that is for the restrictions upon land, air rights, water, and structure for the said venues.
Okay.
Your Honor, I also like to make note that we have several residents, excuse me, which are of the neighboring property in violation that would like to be heard and voice their concerns of the said violations.
So are all the alleged violations, do they all remain in violation? Has anything been cured at this point?
At this point in time, sections 18106K and 74474 are in compliance. All of the other code sections remain in violation.
All right. Is there any allegation that any of the violations constitute a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare at this time?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And so what is the city's position on the request to continue this case?
Special Magistrate, thank you. The city would object to this motion for continuance. It is the second motion for continuance. As he indicated, the first one was at the beginning of February, and we did special set this one. So the owner, Mr. Katsouris, has technically or logically been, has known about this since early February. My understanding of reviewing a blog and some very detailed postings by Mr. Katsouris, the owner, and his wife on the internet, which I do have printouts, are that they did leave the U.S. last year to basically permanently or for a very long term reside in Europe or thereabouts. Yes, they do have a son who has these special needs, which I understand. But based on what their postings are, they have no intention of coming back to live or reside in the U.S., such that they're just taking a short vacation or a slightly longer, 4-week vacation. This is months and months and months and months. So our position as the city is that there is threat to the health, safety, and welfare of this community. There is an overwhelming amount of activity at the property that the city feels is in violation of its codes. And this is a community that that has thrust at them a property that is using in an unpermitted or prohibited use manner as a wedding venue with 80 to 100 to 120 people coming almost every weekend. We do have members of the community. My understanding is that they have heard the noise, they've seen the DJs and the tents and the music and the caterers and the traffic. And so this community is bearing the brunt of this property owner profiting in an area that has restrictions.
Is this a residential neighborhood?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, just from
Yes, sir.
what I've gleaned at
Yes,
this
sir.
point, based on the comments of council and code enforcement officers running down the code sections. So what do we have, like a house that's being rented out for wedding receptions and parties and things like that? Is that what I'm hearing?
It is, my understanding is that it is a multiple structure property that currently has 4 units and is only supposed to have 2 units. It is being rented out short-term Airbnb on days when it's not already rented out for wedding venues, or wedding events, excuse me. Per also some internet research, it appears there's other types of events there, maybe it's like some, I don't know if it was cheese making or macrame making, some smaller events like that. It's the wedding events or the events on the weekend that have been a tremendous burden on this community and are causing what the city feels are violations. And we can have, again, we can give you more fact-based information rather than, if you don't want argument, but fact-based information.
I'm still trying to get a feel for what's going on so I can make a decision on whether it's appropriate to continue today's hearing or not. So is it the city's contention that all these activities that you've explained to me would be contrary to city code, would not be allowed?
Correct.
Okay. Let me let counsel for the respondent respond to the city, and then I'm going to ask a couple additional questions and make a decision on the continuance.
Thank you, Magistrate. May I approach?
Sure.
Thank you.
If you're going to show me something, please
I got
show
2
it to
copies.
counsel. Yeah. Thanks.
Magistrate, what I've just handed to you is our February 3rd, 2020 request for continuance. Counsel for the city just made mention that this is our second request for continuance in this matter. I would suggest that this is actually still our first request for that same continuance. When I made this request back in February 3rd of 2020, I asked for that March 18, 2020 date, understanding what my client's availability was because of his needs to be with his son, where he is over in the Netherlands for the special needs school. If when he leaves, there's nobody to drive his son to school because of where they are. This is not a place where they've got family or anything like that. So he had to make a choice, and we tried to put that before the city when we made this first request. So again, this is the respondent's first request for a continuance. I understand we're here today, and I understand there are people that want to speak here today, but this all then tailors back to due process. My client is the one who's being alleged to have made all these violations, and he's the one that needs to be able to address all these violations in person to be able to respond to that. Again, we are at a severe disadvantage to be able to respond to a lot of these items because he is unable to be here today. We're not asking for a significant amount of time. Again, the March 4th, 2020 date, as soon as I found out that that was an option, may I approach again, Magistrate?
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as today's date was set, I spoke with counsel for the city, and we spoke about this, and I expressed the ardent need for this to be moved. That's when I was told about this March 4th potential date. I immediately emailed her following up with our conversation saying, I understand, we really just need this to be moved beyond this one date so that he has an opportunity to get here from his son's school. We asked for the March 4th, 2020 hearing date. I was told that the city would be objecting to it, but that I could present it at today's hearing. And then I don't think it's really being contested that he's out of the country right now. I mean, I have his plane tickets. It seems like the city's not arguing with that. But regardless of how long he's going or planning to be away, that's not, I think, really the issue. The issue is, does he have the ability to be here for a hearing date within a reasonably short amount of time? And the answer is yes. And we're only asking until March 4th, again, because he could not be here today because of his obligations to his son. I could get into the issues that we're talking about related to this property and the code violations that are being asserted, but I really just think the point on the continuance that I'm making to the magistrate right now is just strictly on a due process basis. If the city is going to bring these violations against him, we're only asking for a very short continuance so he can fly here from the Netherlands to be here on March 4th, 2020.
Let me ask this question. To the extent that there are residents in the community who the city may want to call as witnesses, would there be any problem with hearing from those folks today so that since they've come, we can hear their testimony and then if I continue the rest of the case, so as not to inconvenience those folks?
I would not object to that.
All right.
Magistrate, can I respond to his comments on the notification? Sure. Mitch Posner, Code Enforcement Supervisor, West Palm Beach. Disagree with the contention that this is still the first request. The first email that he submitted to you says he's been assigned as counsel and respectfully requests the code compliance hearing set for February 19th be rescheduled due to a prepaid vacation with family out of state. He then was asked to provide documentation of this. He provided documentation for his prepaid vacation, and that's when we sent the March 4th hearing, which was done, if you see the second email, on February 7th. His clients had all that time to get here. Okay. I don't believe the schools in Amsterdam closed down by the end of the month versus the beginning of the month.
Thank you. And let me ask another question. So the city continues cases from time to time, and they typically just roll on to the next regularly scheduled agenda. Is this going to be something that needs to be heard separate and distinct because it's going to take more time and there's more evidence and more witnesses? I'm getting the sense that that may be the case because I'm just looking at the calendar. March 18th is a regularly scheduled hearing day with a regular agenda. If this is going to be a lengthy case, I could see that being an issue. Other date that's been discussed is March 4th, which I am available for a special hearing. So what are we talking about in terms of time for this case?
March 4th is already a scheduled hearing as well. Our intention on a regular hearing date would be to set a later time the same day to get the bulk of the hearings done before we started the lengthy case that this is likely to be.
All right, well, and I could do the afternoon on either of those days. Anything else from the city on the request for the continuance?
Yes, sir. We have 5 or 6 people from the community that wish to address you on that issue.
Okay, so this would be my intention. After I hear from everybody on this, the attorneys on the motion for continuance, at the very least, it would be my intention to hear from the witnesses who came from the community so as not to inconvenience them and make them come back for a continuance. I would intend to take that testimony today, regardless.
Special Magistrate, very briefly, I'm not sure it's completely clear. The first continuance, my understanding, was based on the attorney's unavailability, and he provided me with specific documentation showing that he, as an attorney, was not available in the jurisdiction. Our contention as the city is that that was not based on Mr. Katsouris, the property owner's unavailability. He only submitted information as to himself, the attorney.
May I clarify that point?
Go ahead.
Okay. Counsel is correct. When we submitted that first request for continuance, again, today's date for a hearing does not show up on the city's website as a potential date. And so when I made that request, because it's true, the first date that was picked by the city, I had a prepaid family trip that I was planning to be out of the state, and that was the basis for the request. Had I known that this was going to be a potential date that the city was going to be picking for this hearing, I would have included in the issue with my client's conflict as well. I had no intent, this is not a second request for continuance. I just did not know that the city would pick a special set date other than what was listed on the website. And the next specific date on the website was March 18th, which was what I cleared with my client, and why there is no other reference to an issue with a conflict.
Oh, so your client's not available until the 18th?
No.
They could be here on the 4th?
Yes, he
Could
could
we
be here
do
on
this
the 4th.
hearing on the 4th?
Special magistrate, I don't believe that I, as representing the city, can make that determination. I can bring to you what the
No, I
city's
mean, in
position
terms
is.
of logistics, is there a room available? And I mean, the 4th is basically 1 week out. This is what I'm thinking. Here's what I'm inclined to do. Hear from the witnesses who are not city staff today. I would agree to continue this to March 4th, but it would also, a condition of that is maintaining the status quo. In other words, I don't want anything happening at this property until we have the hearing on the 4th. I don't want a party this weekend or tomorrow or I want it to be quiet. I want the status quo maintained, no events, nothing going on until we have this hearing on March 4th. That would be my condition of granting this continuance. Given the allegations, I don't think it's unreasonable. So I would agree to grant the continuance to either March 4th or March 18th, quite honestly, but with the stipulation that none of these types of events occur on the property, and I'll hear from the folks who came from the community today. Is that acceptable to the respondent?
I have to check with my client. I can communicate with him on here, but
Okay.
if-
Is that acceptable to the city? I mean, that's what that's,
Continuance is acceptable with the caveat that no events be held in the interim.
well, if that is not agreed to, then it would be my intention to proceed with the hearing today.
Understood, we would agree to that.
Okay, I'd like to hear from counsel for the respondent, and why don't you figure out who you're gonna have testify first, and we'll hear from those folks once we get through this matter. And then you got, like I said, either the 4th or the 18th is available for me.
It's if they can't agree. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask for a 5-minute recess so I can call my client?
Sure. Why don't we go off the record for a few minutes?
Let me just talk to Erica again. I believe that's what she said. Both chambers are available, or the chambers are available both afternoons.
30 seconds, please.
All right, are we back on the record? All right, let's go back on the record for CE 20010244. We had taken a recess for counsel to speak to his client, so we're back. Where are we?
Okay, so again, my client's been trying to get on the right side of this thing ever since it got brought up to him, and so what he wants to do is he doesn't want to make any misrepresentations to you or the city on anything. And so there is an event. He's already told the city about it. It's supposed to be over by 3:30 on Saturday. He's legally obligated to honor that right now. Again, it'd be over by 3:30. He would ask for the continuance with the understanding that complete transparency to the city, that there is nothing else after this, and that he will not do anything else after this until there's an opportunity for it to be heard for him on March 4th, 2020. But in the event that, magistrate, you are going to condition that, he doesn't want to tell you that he's going to do it and then ultimately not be able to comply with that, because he understands that, first of all, that would be not fair, and then you come back in on March 4th and you really wouldn't be pleased with him anyway.
Understood. Let me hear from the city.
Special Magistrate, could we have more details about what this event is, how large, the amount of people that are expected?
I can absolutely get you that, yes.
Special Magistrate, in the meantime, could we hear from the public?
Can you tell me what questions you'd like answered about that event?
Sure. Is it specifically wedding and reception? The amount of people? DJ, music, catering, parking? It's my understanding.
Yes, let's go. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Special Magistrate, it's my understanding there are 4 members of the public who would like to be heard
Okay.
before the ultimate decision
Sure.
of whether to continue or not.
Why don't you go ahead and call them up in whatever order you feel is appropriate, and I'll be happy to hear from them.
Ms. Ramirez?
Good morning. My name is Gladys Ramirez. I live directly behind the 717 Forest Hill property,
What is your address, ma'am?
724 Lytle Street, Lytle.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I would like to begin by saying I really appreciate hearing that the property owner would like to be transparent about what's going on, because 21 minutes ago on his personal Instagram, he posted that he was with his family in Portugal. So I think it's a disingenuous representation to you and us to claim that it's because of his son's school that he's unable to be here today. I'd also encourage you to, I don't know if I'm allowed, I made copies for council as well, to please take a look at this binder that I've put together that illustrates why this is an urgent matter that shouldn't be continued, not only for me directly behind, but also for the other residents on Lytle and along Lake and Garden that are affected by this venue. May I?
Give the documents to the city attorney, and
The city, I've already emailed them all of the information that I have. I just created this specifically for you, and I have a copy for council as well.
go ahead and give a copy to Mr. Stevens.
I understand that the property owners are out of the country, and my position as just a resident would be that it's an attempt to continue holding events. There was also a large wedding even last night. If you look at the final tab, you can see just how close the tents are to my backyard.
Okay.
It's less than 20 feet, and these are several tents. Last night there were food trucks, loud amplified music, and since the city has cited them originally for these events, they have started hiring off-duty police officers, leaving residents with no recourse. So anytime we call for a noise complaint, we're told that there's already cops on site and that they quote unquote have a permit. Furthermore, this is an issue that is a little bit on me as a citizen. My understanding is I live in a residential zone, and it also is my understanding that this property is being solely used as a commercial property, which seems illegal to me. And it's not just my word for it. I've included screenshots from their Airbnb. I've included screenshots from their website. I've included a pleading from a probate case where Mr. Katsaros pled in a probate matter, citing that the property is for commercial purposes. And also, I'd like to note, I believe council mentioned that there was nobody that could have possibly spoken on the matter other than the owner. However, I have a letter from the owner that I believe I saw up there and the city has a copy of that says that Brianne Ford is the property manager, and also Miss Ford is the person that is on site for all these events as the wedding and event coordinator, and she would have been a wonderful resource to have today to speak on any issues about noise. And it's not just a couple of parties that are over by a certain amount of time. These are dozens and dozens of people every weekend. There's no parking on Forest Hill, so many of the neighbors have cars all along the street that sometimes is valet is being used, caterers are parking there, AV. There are large tents being set up within 20 feet of other houses, and the amplified music carries on inside of our homes. So I respectfully request for you to consider the position of the residents and not allow this to continue. It would not be just to allow these individuals to continue to profit while the residents are being forced to be subjected to this and being left with no recourse. We are literally left with you, sir, to uphold the city's zoning laws and allow us to have some peace in our residential area.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, before you sit down, let me ask if Mr. Stevens might have any questions for you.
Yes, quickly, Ms. Ramirez, what did you say your address was?
724 Lytle.
Okay, and you have personally been on the property before?
On whose property?
On my client's property?
No.
Okay, so have you seen the list of citations that he's been cited for today's purposes?
Yeah, online.
Okay, has he been cited for any noise ordinance violations?
That would be a good question for the code enforcement office.
You don't know either way?
Nope, I'm just a resident who goes through it, but I do have videos from my backyard, so where you can hear the noise.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to share it with
Okay.
whoever would like to see it.
Did you bring those videos today?
I have them on my phone.
Okay. And as far as the timing goes, as far as when you're saying there's a noise issue?
Last night until 2 in the morning, people were outside hanging out, screaming and partying. People go to weddings, they have a great time. It is not my intention to stifle business or ruin people's special day. I just don't think that residents should be subjected to an ill-conceived business plan, creating a wedding venue in a residential zone.
Okay. All right, no questions.
Thank you.
Anything else from Ms. Ramirez from the city?
Just to say the video that she had, that she took yesterday is already in our system, so that can be played here for the hearing if need be.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I can provide a response to the questions that you had if you'd like to do
All
that.
right, why don't you go ahead and answer those questions?
Okay, so it'd be about 100 people. It is a wedding with a DJ, and it is scheduled to be over by 3:30 on Saturday.
May I, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it also a wedding reception or just the wedding ceremony? I'm assuming wedding reception because you're saying DJ, but I don't want to make any assumptions.
Go to the next witness, and I'll get you that answer.
And while the next witness is coming up, let me ask the city attorney, if everything was done properly, can this type of use be allowed at this address? If everything was done by the book, would this be allowed anyway? Because I'm still kind of getting this, shot here, a shot there. I'm trying to understand exactly. I haven't read the code sections. So if the respondent did everything by the book, business tax, certificate of use, inspections, permits, would this be a permissible thing that could happen on this property? Ma'am, thank you.
If they did everything properly, it could be licensed as a rental or an Airbnb, not as a wedding venue, which all their advertisement continues to do. But we'd like to bring up Rick Green to speak on this issue, Development Services Director.
Okay.
May I state our position before you get started, or do you want to wait?
I beg your pardon?
May I state our position, or do you want to wait to hear from him first?
Let me hear from him, and then you'll certainly have every opportunity. You can ask him questions, and you can respond.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge. Rick Green, I'm the Development Services Director for the City of West Palm Beach.
Sir.
And in that capacity, I oversee planning and zoning, I oversee building, inspections, code enforcement, and historic preservation. So if I could, let me provide you just a very quick backdrop. In our zoning code, we have several zoning categories that affect residential. So the least intense is single-family 7, which allows 7 units to the acre. We have an SF 14, which allows 14 to the acre. Then we escalate into multifamily at MF 14, MF 20, and MF 32 being our zoning district with the greatest density. In this case, the property at 717 Forest Hill lies within a single-family 7 zoning district. So I think the jury is still out on that particular question. We're doing research now with law. Part of the concern that I, overseeing this department, have is that on February 7th, we issued the property a stop work order. Before any wedding or event can take place, the owner is bound and obligated to secure a special events permit. When we issued the stop work order on February 7th, the events continued without the special event permit, without any of the activities ceasing. So that's our concern, is that the events continue to happen even though a stop work order was issued 17 days ago. We are looking at right now how this business operates. If it is in fact a commercial venture operating in a single-family zoning district, we may preclude future events from moving forward. Either way, we are probably, if we find out that in fact he comes into compliance with every provision, we may in fact amend our zoning code to prevent a commercial use from operating in this fashion in a residential district.
Okay. Thank you for that. Let me ask if Mr. Stevens has any questions for you.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Rick Green, Greene.
Rick Green. And what was your position with the city?
I am the Development Services Director.
Okay. So just to confirm, as you are testifying presently, you cannot say with absolute certainty whether, if everything again was brought into compliance, what my client is doing on this property would be a violation of the present codes of the city of West Palm Beach.
Well, we know for a fact that there were 2 units that were legally converted, so the SF7 only allows 2 units. So there is 4 units currently being inhabited on the property. So taking the kitchen facilities out and making those not deemed to be a unit would be first and foremost why the stop work order was issued. But we're doing more research with our law department on that very question.
Okay, so the answer would be no.
At this time, no.
Okay. And as you stand here today, do you know if when my client acquired this property, the nonconformity you're describing, this 4 versus 2 issue, was already in place, or if he did the work himself?
My understanding was that he may have converted those based on some of the emails and some of the testimony I've heard from my staff.
Okay, so Mr. Green, we're asking about your personal knowledge today, because you were the one testifying in front of the magistrate this morning.
Yeah.
Do you have personal knowledge that my client, once he acquired this property, did this work, or whether that property was already non-conforming when he acquired
I
it?
personally do not know.
Okay.
And Mr. Stevens, I might need to ask you to get the microphone a little closer
yes.
to you, because,
Sorry.
yeah, if I'm having trouble here, and I know, I'm not sure if the record's picking it up, and I got to remember to do the same thing.
Okay. And as far as the stop work order goes, my understanding, again, speaking, or at least from communicating with Robert Brown, do you know who Robert Brown is?
Yes, he's my building official. He's sitting right behind me.
Good morning, Mr. Brown.
And he issued the stop work order himself.
Right. And are you familiar that my client has been emailing regularly with your staff, including Mr. Brown, trying to clear up these issues?
I have seen some of those emails, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm looking at an email from Mr. Brown where he was answering questions to my client specific to the stop work order. And he said that the stop work order serves to let you know that you must stop any additional work that is ongoing or planned without permit. Does that sound like an accurate reflection of what the effect of that stop work order was?
Yes, and it also precluded your client from moving forward with wedding events because, again, a special events permit is required for a special event to take place.
Right, and has my client applied for a special events permit?
I believe they have, but as part of the work order, it was noted that no special event permit would be issued until he came into compliance.
Right, and so the idea was he needed to get a special event permit, but he couldn't do it until he came to compliance, and most notably with this 2-4 split with the kitchenette issue, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so again, assuming he did come into compliance with this 2-4 kitchenette issue, would there be any prohibition from him receiving a special event permit?
I can't answer that question now because, again, we are doing that research with our law department right now.
Okay, so as far as you know, I'm sorry, am I speaking into this?
I'm getting it. I'm hearing
Okay.
easily now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I don't have any further questions for you right now. Thank you.
Does the city have any additional questions? I have one clarifying question for myself. So if I heard you correctly, a special event permit has been applied for, which would cover the event that's contemplated for this upcoming Saturday. However, the city will not issue the permit while the code violation case remains outstanding.
Yes, sir. We typically do not issue any permits if a property is in violation of any code within the city. So in this case, he's seeking to have a wedding venue, but they're not compliant with the city code.
All right. Does either the city or Mr. Stevens have any questions based on the question that I just asked?
No, sir.
Yes, sir. Just to clarify, I don't believe there's a special events permit request submitted for this coming event. The one that was submitted was for a prior event that was denied, and the event still took place.
Mr. Green, do you know if a special event permit's been applied for?
I have one of my employees, Rachel Sargent, is here today. She is the lady who issues the special events permit. I certainly would rather defer to her, Judge, and she could
All right,
probably
and maybe
answer
Mr.
that,
Stevens, I don't know if you know or not.
I'm inquiring right now. I don't know offhand, but I will say that, again, it was communicated to us as Mr. Green just testified that no special permit, no special events
Events.
permit would be issued while there was this non-conforming issue with the structure. And my client just told me that he did not submit one for this week, and he submitted multiple permits, received multiple denials, received no denials or approvals, but was told that they wouldn't be determined one way or the other until he came into compliance with respect to this one property.
Okay. Well, so let me just stop here. I mean, as I said, I will agree to continue this hearing, but I cannot agree to allow an unpermitted special event to occur pending the hearing. So they either need to figure something out, but I cannot, regardless of the city's position of where I'm sitting, if based on what I've heard at this point, it cannot lawfully occur under city code. I can't and I will not continue this understanding that that is intended to take place. So that needs to not happen, or we need to proceed with the violation hearing. I can't sit here and
Understand.
allow an admitted unpermitted event to occur with this pending code case. So they either need to agree that that's not going to happen, or we need to proceed with the violation hearing and see what where it goes.
Okay, even though that they would be given an opportunity to cure these alleged site violations, I mean, if we go through this whole thing today, and for example, let's say that the mountain of violations, wrong word, several violations are contingent upon them fixing this nonconformity, which, just so we're all clear on this, it's a structure that has 4 kitchenettes that really should only have 2, based on how the city views this property. And the property was acquired this way. My client didn't do this work. He didn't ask for, again, this property to be done this way. He didn't hire a contractor to do it. And what he's doing is he's renting this property out. He's renting the entire property out as a short-term rental. And what these people choose to do on this property is up to them. Yes, it is advertised as a great place if people want to throw parties. on this property because it's a beautiful location.
Objection, sir. The advertisements specifically say wedding venue. It's even advertised on wedding venue sites.
I get all that.
Okay.
But, you know, if you're going to be a property owner and you're going to use your property in this fashion, yes, people are going to do what they're going to do, but in my view, at the end of the day, whoever's name's on the deed is responsible for the behavior at the property, whether they're here or not. And you have to do it pursuant to city code. I mean, look, if the property came into compliance on Friday night, then it's, quite frankly, there's nothing left for me to do. If there's no longer a code violation, there's nothing left for me to rule on.
Right, but if we did come into compliance Friday, with respect to the nonconformity, odds of us getting a permit issued by Saturday would be slim to none.
Well, it seems to me, just based on the description I got, I would find that it seems like it would be a pretty big push to get this whole thing into compliance to allow this event to occur on Saturday, which, again, I'm not saying it's not possible. Maybe it is, but, and again, if everything came into compliance, then there's nothing left for me to do. It
Right.
seems to me if the code case goes away, that's the end of this process. But what I'm saying is that I am not going to continue this and say that it's okay for that event to occur contrary to city code.
I understand.
Absolutely will not say that. So,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to.
so we either are going to proceed today with the hearing, or the respondent is going to agree that that will not happen, and then I will continue the matter. I'll still hear from the other three folks who came, but that's my bottom line.
I understand. And again, my client is trying to move the earth to get everything the way it should be. I mean, this all just kind of came up in January where everything suddenly came to a head, and he hired me. He's got 2 lawyers involved, 2 separate law firms trying to just sort through all this. He's sending emails pretty regularly to, Mr. Green's staff, trying to figure out what he needs to do right by the city. If there's a permit that needs to be applied for, he's trying to do it. If there's a certificate that he needs to apply for, and he's been doing a lot of this stuff. But the hang-up right now, and I believe that the issue related to the kitchenette is not really before the magistrate today, because that's not part of the citations that are for today. But it's tied into him not being able to obtain some of these certificates and licenses because he can't get into, conformity without doing that. And so I don't want to be disrespectful to this tribunal. I don't want to misrepresent anything to you, and my client definitely doesn't want to either. And so
I get that, and I appreciate that, and clearly you're in a tough spot. But that, the only way I'm going, my condition to continue this hearing is that nothing contrary to city code occurs on that property pending when we reconvene. That's
I understand, and magistrate, based on that, I wouldn't be able to represent to the commission, to you
Okay.
today.
Then, all right, then is there anything else from either Mr. Stevens or from the city on the motion to continue?
If it does continue and they do hold the event in violation, the city wants to ask for a irrevocable, what's the word?
Irreversible, irreparable.
Irrevocable harm fine of $15,000 for the event.
I mean, I think if the event occurred contrary to code, you'd be entitled to ask for that. I mean, here's where I am. I'm prepared to deny the request for continuance if the city is remaining in that posture. I don't know if that creates a due process issue for you or not. But I also understand you've obviously got very concerned residents who are being affected by this, and I get that. So since the respondent is not able to agree with the condition that I placed on the continuance, I'm prepared to deny the motion to continue. So that's where we are.
Special Magistrate, could we take a recess for 5 minutes?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's go off the record for 5 minutes, and we'll be back in a few.